Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and today we're excited to have Andrew Pedipin join us again on the show. Now, Andrew is a writer, speaker, and dynamic voice in the Catholic world, known for his knack for cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of what our faith is all about. He's also the author of a brand new book, The Faith Unboxed, Freeing the Catholic Church from the Containers People Put It In. Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Keith.
Absolutely. So Catholicism often gets packaged into certain ideas, whether it's rules, rituals, or even stereotypes. I've seen it, I feel like, firsthand on X. But why do you think people tend to put our faith into these boxes in the first place?
Well, there does seem to be just something about the way we like to exist in the world, that we like to kind of have neat and tidy categories. We like to put something over there and something else over there, and it makes us uncomfortable when things kind of either mix together or don't fit the narrative properly. Now, for me, Keith, I came into full communion with the Catholic Church from a Protestant background, and one of the biggest issues for me in my kind of journey with the decision and my family's, discernment about whether to come into the Catholic Church was just this question of what the Catholic Church actually is, what it means to be fully Christian. And so, we really had to struggle with some of these questions of, is the Catholic Church just kind of the biggest and best denomination? Or, is it like, what should we be looking for? Should we be looking for kind of the Christian group that kind of aligns best with our kind of pre-existing ideas? And the more I explored that question, the more I realized that there were a lot of people throughout history who had struggled with that same kind of question. And, the more that I kind of read and listened to different people talking about this issue, both Catholics and non-Catholics, the more I realized that there were just a lot of misperceptions. There were just a lot of people were just too, I think, ready to accept neatly packaged ways of thinking of what the Catholic Church is and what the Christian faith is. So, little by little, I just started accumulating these words in my mind that were the kind of key misperceptions. And before I knew it, I had this little book that I hope can be, useful to people who are exploring some of these same questions.
I love the image you have on the front, the cover there. It's a cardboard box, but it's in the shape of a cross, and there's light coming from it. It's really cool. Speaking of the book, in The Faith Unboxed, you talked about freeing the church from some of these containers. Can you share maybe an example of one of these boxes? You mentioned kind of you found a lot of misconceptions that you encountered and how it distorts what Catholicism really is.
Yeah, well, I like to start with the one that the word that really sparked my interest in this whole question, and I've already used the word, but I'll use it again, and it's the word denomination. We have this mindset as Catholics, but also other Christians have this viewpoint, and non-Christians too, that there's just all these different ways of being a Christian, and who is really to say what the right one is? That there are just all these different expressions of it, and we're all seeking the same thing, and God will sort of surely honor that quest, right? Now, the problem with that is this whole idea of a denomination is a relatively newfangled one. The word itself in the English language is typically only used in two different contexts. One is with regard to religion, and the other is with regard to money. Now, I think that's telling because we don't do this so much anymore, but in the old days, you would go to the bank, and if you wanted to cash a check, they would cash your check they would ask you what denomination you wanted it in, right? So if you had $100, you could take 100 ones, you could take it all in pennies, you could take it in $20 bills. It didn't matter to them. It all cashed out in the end the exact same way. It was just your preference, how you wanted to take your money. And funnily enough, the only other place in the English language really where we use the word denomination is with regard to religion, because our viewpoint in the culture tends to be, it doesn't really matter how it all cashes out. Look, you go be a Baptist, you go be a Catholic, you be a Methodist, whatever it is. Like, we're all kind of hoping for the same thing. You have $20 bills, I have pennies, whatever it is, right? But the problem is the Catholic Church does not use the word denomination. It's not in any of our official documents. It is not something that the Catholic Church teaches. Why? Because the Catholic Church is not divided. The Catholic Church, we do not believe that there are just all these different expressions that equal the same thing. What we do say is that there's one church. We believe its fullest being is here in the Catholic Church, in full communion with the Bishop of Rome, with the successor to Peter. But there are separated brethren. There are other Christians who are baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, who exist in different degrees of communion with that full degree of communion that we have in the Catholic Church. For me, when I came into full communion with the Catholic Church, that was the mind-blowing thing. That was the thing that when I got my head around that, I wanted to run headlong into full communion with the Catholic Church, because I wanted the fullness. I wanted the full experience of reality. And that's kind of what I'm trying to convey in each one of these chapters.
Oh, the full experience of reality. That is powerful. In your book, you bring pop culture into the discussion, which is it's a fun twist. So why do you think that's a powerful way to talk about something as deep as Catholicism? And curious, what's one pop culture reference in the book you're especially excited about?
Yeah, well, Keith, I have a degree in theology, and I love theology, and I ministered in a Protestant tradition before I was Catholic. So I certainly love to kind of have the high-level theological discussions. But I'm also, I've also written a book about movies, and I'm writing a novel myself. I mean, I've always loved literature. I've always loved the arts. I've always loved cinema, and so for me, the idea of embracing the truth is, look, there's objective truth, and that's that, and we get that. And that truth always has to be proposed. This is something the Catholic Church is very big on. However, look, something can be objectively true, and it can feel 0% true to you. And that's just the way that it is, because we're human. Because the way that we experience encounter with truth is not just about rational assent. It's also about our hearts. It's about the wholeness of our being. So for me, when I want to kind of propose the truth, or when I want to kind of be a part of this mission of proposing the truth that the Catholic Church is engaged in, to me, it's just essential to kind of find these touchstones, these connection points with people who are, just sort of living their lives out in the world. So, for me, I frequently reference films, I reference, music, literature, all these sort of things weave together with me. So yeah, if you pick up the Faith Unboxed, you're going to find references to the Tom Hanks film Big. You're going to find references to, actually to Game of Thrones, which isn't necessarily a show I recommend people watch, but there were one or two lessons that I gained from that. I referred to the pop star Peter Gabriel. He has a couple of great songs that appealed to me. I refer to the American poet Robert Frost. I talk about Jack Kerouac. I talk about just all kinds of different things that have been meaningful to me, in addition to some travel experiences that I've had. I really want to kind of remind people of the treasures of our faith, that when you walk into a big cathedral, for example, you have some sense of like the capaciousness of the experience of life in the church, that it's so much bigger than any box you could put it in. And you need to feel that. It's one thing to kind of read an argument, but it's another thing to kind of really begin to live that experience for yourself.
For someone who dives into the Faith Unboxed, what's the one key thing you want them to take away about their Catholic identity?
Well, I'll just pick up where I left off with the last thing that I was saying, is just the bigness of it. Moreover, something else that is important to me is that we not just think of our faith as, I said before that we don't want to think of ourselves as just the biggest and best denomination, but we also don't want to think of ourselves as sort of just being true because we sort of have the most, for lack of a better word, the most rules. The rules are there and they're important, right? But, this is actually something that Pope Benedict XVI talked about a little bit, that he didn't want church leaders or people like you, Keith, or, those of us who talk about the faith publicly to only bang on about the church teaches, the church teaches, the church teaches. Yes, we do want to talk about what the church teaches, but we want to talk about what the church teaches because the church is interested in describing the truth that has been revealed, right? So it's not like we just sort of, we want to just say, hey, look, hey, I can't help it. The church teaches it. That's that. We want to say, look, we're excited that the church teaches this because it's true and because it's been revealed to us, because, again, it's the fullness of that experience of reality. So I really hope that people pick up the Faith Unboxed, and when they start reading through it, they get this sense like, okay, this guy isn't just going to kind of hit me over the head with, hey, look, if you don't do this, you're going to hell, or don't forget to do that, and whatever. But rather, like, that they experience it as an invitation into this very big world, which is life with Christ in the church.
Wow. And for those out there that are listening, if you're wanting to get more information about the Faith Unboxed, you can just easily go to shop.catholic.com, and it's a great place to pick up this awesome book. Really a great read to rethink what our faith can be. Andrew, real quick, I know we got a minute left. Any last words for our audience?
Well, to me, something that's going to be important as we move forward in the years ahead. I was just reading something by the great Catholic thinker George Weigel about this matter, that increasingly we're just not going to be able to depend upon the fact anymore that we were born into the Catholic faith, even for those who were born cradle Catholics, which I wasn't. So I'm the last one to say that Catholic converts are sort of the best Catholics. I still have a lot to learn from my cradle Catholic brothers and sisters, but I do hope that someone might pick up this book or listen to others like me as a way of remembering that even if they were sort of quote unquote born into the Catholic faith, that it needs to be discovered anew, because we just don't live in a Christian culture or a Catholic culture anymore. And so I hope that books like the one that I've created here are an invitation to kind of like really explore that faith for oneself, and to own it, to make it real for each person. Wow.
Well, I'll say it for you, Andrew. The converts are the best Catholics. I'll just say it. I'm a cradle Catholic. I can say that. All right. But thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us. If you're looking for more of Andrew, we'll put all of the information in our show notes make it really easy for you to find him. But thanks again, Andrew. And that is it for Morning Joy, where truth matters. Now, there's a couple of routes we can take, as I always mention around this time. If you're listening on the radio right now and you're staying for the Holy Mass coming up next, please pray for us. We'll always continue to pray for you and your intentions. Otherwise, we invite you on over to our after show Clubhouse. It's a wonderful way to debrief from the show and have a little bit of fun with you. It's all interactive. Just search Morning Joy Radio or GRN online on any of the social medias. We recommend YouTube and or Rumble. Got a great pack of joyful pilgrims. But until then, until tomorrow, make it a joyful day.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters. Hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.